praise to Allah. We seek His aid and His assistance and ask His forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from the evil of our souls and from the evil of our actions. Whoever Allah guides, no one will be able to mislead him. Whoever He leads astray, nobody can guide him. I testify that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah alone without partner, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His slave and messenger. O you who believe, fear Allah by doing all that He has ordered and by abstaining from all that He has forbidden. He should be feared. Obey Him, be thankful to Him, and remember Him always. Indeed, the best speech is the speech of Allah, and the best guidance is the guidance of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the worst of matters are those innovated by the people. And every innovator matter is a bid'ah, and every bid'ah is astray, and every going astray is in the fire of hell. Praise be to Allah, the glorified and exalted, the mighty and majestic. I testify to His unique oneness and to the finality of the prophethood in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I greet my sisters and brothers with peace and welcome you all to the house of Allah. I remind myself and you to be conscious of Allah, to be dutiful to Him, consistent in our love, loyalty, and submission to His Allah, to His will. Sisters and brothers, in a hadith by Thawban, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Very soon a time will come when the nations of the world will invite one another to devour you, just as diners invite one another to a dish." The Sahaba asked, "Is it because we'll be few on that day?" The Prophet ﷺ replied, "No, you will be plenty, but you will be like the foam on the surface of the sea. Allah will remove the fear of you from the hearts of your enemies and place weakness in your hearts." When the companions asked, "What is this weakness that you talk about?" the Prophet ﷺ explained, "You will be obsessed with the life of this world and you will fear death." Today, we see the prophecy unfolding. With over 2 billion Muslims around the world, we find ourselves unable to even send basic aid to our brothers and sisters in Gaza. This is a reminder of the prophetic warning that when we are too preoccupied with worldly comforts and fearful of our sacrifice, we become paralyzed and vulnerable despite our numbers. Let's go for a short moment, few hundred years ago, to the time when the Mongols had invaded the Ummah, and when historians said that was one of the times when Islam came closest to being wiped out. Without downplaying the difficulties we face today, let us remember that during the invasion, in Nishapur, a town in Iran, 1.7 million people, Muslims, were massacred. That's equivalent to 30 million Muslims in today's numbers. In Baghdad, 1.6 million people were killed. That is equivalent to 27 million people in today's terms. That, with all the other cities, that's more people, more Muslims killed in all the deaths of World War II, Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan, and Iraq wars put together in today's terms. Yet, despite the devastation, Islam eventually triumphed. Islam conquered not lands, but the hearts of the Mongols. The Mongols not only converted to Islam, but became one of its best soldiers in the Ummah. This shows that even in the darkest times, Allah's mercy and power can turn the tide. Let's come back to today. Let's come back to Gaza today. Despite the overwhelming odds, the people there have demonstrated incredible resilience. And this resilience is rooted in the Quran. Their strength is not in their numbers, not in their weapons, but in their faith in Allah and their unwavering determination. Victory does not always look like what we expect. Remember, being killed does not mean failure. There are prophets of Allah who were martyred, and Allah calls them successful. The people of the trench who were burned alive for their faith were also called successful by Allah. In Surah Al-Buruj, Allah says, "Indeed, those who have believed and done righteous deeds, for them are gardens beneath which rivers flow." Allah is the Almighty and praiseworthy, regardless of how the world perceives events. He is Al-Aziz, the mighty, and His will is always supreme. We have to keep that in mind. Now let's come back to our faith and our action, and our role in the Ummah. If we do not stay connected to the Quran and strengthen our faith, we risk having weak hearts. And when we have weak hearts, two dangerous things can happen. What are these two things? Firstly, we might lose faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May He protect all of us from this. And the second dangerous thing that can happen is we might lose hope in the struggle itself and give up on trying. So if we see ourselves or anyone coming even close to this, this is a wake-up call to strengthen our bond with Allah's Kalam, with the Quran. In the case of Gaza, we see that even small efforts can make a big difference. Few months ago, when students in Harvard University first raised their voices for Gaza, they were attacked, they were penalized, they were threatened, but they did not give up. Their resilience led to protests on campus and eventually influenced a Harvard trustee to resign. This shows that no effort is too small, and every action, no matter how insignificant it seems, contributes to a larger cause. Whenever we ask if we went out to a protest or if we made a call, what difference did it make? Did it stop the war? That is a very negative approach. That is not how things work in the world, and that is not how a Muslim or a Mu'min thinks. Today, my dear sisters and brothers, I'm going to leave you with 3 very practical things that we can all do. First and foremost is make a change in our du'as. Instead of asking Allah to grant victory to the Palestinians, that we have been doing for over 100 years, ask Allah to make you, personally you, a means of victory for the Palestinians.
Amen.
Ask Allah to grant you personally, not the Ummah, not your community leaders, not your organizations, but you personally, the wisdom, the strength, and the resources to contribute effectively and with results to the victory of the Palestinians.
Amen.
Do not ask Allah to defeat the Zionists. Ask Allah to make you the cause of that defeat of the Zionists.
Amen.
Ask Allah to grant you the wisdom to facilitate the victory of the Palestinians. At least pray that you have the wisdom to contribute in any way towards their victory. The second thing that we can do, remember that this is a battle. This is war. This is not a natural calamity. This is not an earthquake. This is not a flood. Whenever a natural calamity comes, we immediately send food, we send medicines, we send basic needs, and we donate a lot to the charity, which is great, which is our duty. And then after that, we think our duty is done. We go home happy. Dear brothers and sisters, tell me, what do you do when the Ummah is in a battle? When the Ummah is in a war? The first and foremost thing that you do is you support the soldiers. And how do you support the soldiers? Do you send them food? Do you send them clothing? All that comes afterwards. Medications, all that comes after. The first thing you support, which becomes your number one obligation, is you support them with weapons to fight the war. And who, my dear brothers and sisters, are the soldiers of today? These are not necessarily in Gaza. These are the media personalities today. These are the few precious politicians raising their voice. These are the students. These are the social media influencers who are influencing millions and millions of people's opinion. These are the peoples who are driving the public opinion, the change in public opinion. These are Jews, these are Christians, these are Muslims, these are Arabs, non-Arabs, Americans, everyone. These are the soldiers of today. And our number one obligation is support them. How do we support them? Of course, with your du'as, with your time, and most importantly, with your money. There are organizations today who are advocating on behalf of Palestine, on behalf of Gaza. Muslim organizations, so many out there. You can support them with your donations, if not, with your time. And this one becomes your number one obligation. On campus, there are so many students still facing expulsion from schools, suspensions. You can support attorneys who are fighting their cases financially. You can support people who have been fired from their jobs, who have lost their career simply because they raised their voice on behalf of the Palestinians. You can support financially. You can hire attorneys. You can fund social media personalities. You can subscribe to their accounts on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. If you see today, some of the best content out there is by these influencers. Some of the actions that have brought response from the Israeli government was for the protests. They are targeting social media personalities. They are targeting the media on television channels, on social media. Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu once said, if you want to see who the most effective soldiers are among you, look at the direction of the arrows of your enemy. Turn around and see who is being targeted and support them. Those are the people who are at the forefront in the battle. A famous visionary, scholar, Shah Waliullah Dehlavi, once said, when a community is faced with a calamity, it is in its hands to make it a punishment or azab or a mercy, rahmah. How? How can the same thing become either azab or rahmah? He said, if you suffer thinking that you're being punished, then it is a punishment. However, if you look for opportunities in the calamity, Allah will turn it into a rahmah for you. Always keep an eye out for those opportunities. Remember what happened with the Mongols. The greatest calamity Muslims had faced turned into a rahmah when they became Muslims. They ruled the entire subcontinent, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, was from the offspring of those Mongols. Islam and Muslims, they converted. In that region, it was from the offspring of the Mongols. The third point that I would like to mention today, and the last one that you can do, is find some time to educate yourself. Educate yourself about how the public opinion is made. Learn how party manifestos are made, how the Democrat Party has a platform, how the Republican Party has a platform, how other parties have a platform, how these platforms are made. Understand the role of delegates in political parties. What are delegates? Do we know? These are the people responsible for assigning who runs for which office, for formulating a platform, which lobby a party should follow, which lobby the party should oppose. Understand how the minds of politicians work. Spend some time educating yourself. Yes, we are all watching hundreds of images of the carnage coming out of Gaza because we feel for them. We are one body, one ummah. But they need you as American Muslims to be aware of the system. This is their need, and you have to fulfill this. We always talk about Zionist-controlled politicians, but how? Do we know how your local congressman, your local mayor, your council members are under the influence of Zionists? Who are these Zionists? These are people living in neighborhoods. Their children go to the same schools, they shop at the same grocery stores. Who are these people? How are they funding? How much are they giving? How are they influencing? If you leave it to others, then you're escaping your duty. My dear brothers and sisters, remember, this is a war, and this is your outpost. You cannot leave your post to others. Do not shy away from discussing Gaza and Palestine with your non-Muslim friends and neighbors. Speak with wisdom and courage. And remember, this courage will come from the dua that I mentioned earlier, the dua that you have to change from today onwards. We do not do these things for the sake of immediate results. We do them because they are right, and we leave the results to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Brothers and sisters, we are part of an ummah that will never be broken up. The Prophet ﷺ said in Sahih Muslim, this ummah will never perish, never be destroyed, and will never remain asleep forever. Even if the nations of the world gather against it, it will never be fully defeated. The ummah of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ will always rise, regardless of the challenges it faces. We are still benefiting from this dua that our Prophet ﷺ made, and the mercy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us. To the extent to which we align ourselves with these values and teachings is the extent to which we will succeed. Remember, if you support the cause of Allah, Allah will support you. Whether the situation looks bleak or hopeful, we must remain steadfast in our faith and our actions. May Allah grant us unwavering faith, protect us from doubt, and make us instruments of justice for Gaza and the Ummah at large. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us rebuild and awaken this Ummah. Make us an asset to it, not a hindrance. Allahumma ameen. O Allah, protect us, show us mercy, grant us victory, and alleviate our distress and the distress of all Muslims. Shield us and all Muslims from the evils of the calamities in these worldly and religious affairs. Guide us to rectitude and guide us those whose rectification brings goodness to Muslims. Spare us from destruction, and let those whose removal brings benefit to the Muslims face it. O Allah, shower us with your mercy, gentleness, well-being, and blessings, and do not deprive us